In the heart of Manila, little Miguel Santos sat on the floor of his family's modest home, surrounded by tin cans, empty buckets, and old cooking pots. At just 5 years old, he had already turned these scraps into his own drum set, playing with sticks his father brought home from construction sites. The rhythm that came from his tiny hands was powerful, steady, and alive with passion. Neighbors would often stop outside the window, listening in awe as the child pounded out beats that sounded far too skilled for someone his age. His mother, Rosa, always stood nearby with her phone, recording every moment, her heart swelling with pride. She knew her son's gift was extraordinary, even if the world had not yet seen it. His father, Carlos, though exhausted from long hours of work, always smiled when Miguel played, telling him that one day these beats would take him far beyond the narrow streets of Manila. Life was not easy for the Santos family, but music brought light into their struggles. Rosa secretly believed that Miguel's drumming could open doors they never imagined, and one evening, as Miguel played under the soft glow of a single light bulb, she whispered to herself a prayer, that somehow, her son's rhythm would be heard by the world. That dream would soon set them on a journey to a stage Miguel had never even dared to imagine. In Cebu City, the air buzzed with excitement as families gathered for a small local talent show. The stage was simple, just a wooden platform set up in the town plaza, but for 5-year-old Miguel Santos, it felt as grand as a stadium. He walked out shyly, clutching his tiny drumsticks, his feet barely reaching the floor of the chair placed behind the drum set borrowed from the community center. The audience murmured with curiosity, what could such a little boy possibly do? Some smiled warmly, others chuckled, expecting a cute performance at best. But the moment Miguel's sticks hit the drums, the atmosphere changed completely. His rhythm was sharp, his tempo flawless, and the energy that poured from his tiny frame was unbelievable. The plaza erupted with cheers as people stood, clapping and shouting in amazement. Miguel's eyes lit up with joy. He was no longer just a child playing for fun, he was commanding an audience. Rosa held her phone high, tears blurring her vision as she captured the moment. Carlos stood proudly at her side, his arms folded, a grin spreading across his tired face. By the time Miguel finished, the crowd roared so loudly it echoed through the streets of Cebu. People rushed to congratulate the family, and within hours, videos of his performance began spreading online. Strangers shared the clip, calling him, the little drummer genius. For the first time, Miguel's music reached far beyond the neighborhood of Manila, touching hearts across the Philippines. What began as a playful beat on cans and pots was now turning into something extraordinary. That night, as the family returned to their small room, Rosa looked at Miguel and whispered, "The world is going to hear you, Anak." And deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning. The bright lights of Los Angeles felt overwhelming as the Santos family stepped out of the airport, their small hands clutching each other tightly. For 5-year-old Miguel, it was like entering another world, towering buildings, endless traffic, and strangers speaking a language he barely understood. His mother, Rosa, bent down and whispered encouragement, smoothing his hair and reminding him that he was here for a reason. Carlos carried their worn suitcase, his calloused hands a reminder of the hard work that had brought them this far. When they finally reached the AGT studio, Miguel's eyes widened at the massive stage he had only seen on TV. Backstage, Terry Crews knelt down to Miguel's height, flashing his famous smile. "Are you ready, little man?" he asked warmly, and Miguel, though shy, nodded with determination. As Rosa hugged her son tightly, she whispered, "Play from your heart, Anak. The world will listen." Meanwhile, Simon Cowell watched from the judges' table with his usual skeptical expression. Seeing a tiny boy walk on stage with drumsticks in hand, he raised an eyebrow, as though expecting nothing more than a playful act. The audience murmured, some amused, others curious. Miguel climbed onto the chair behind the drum set, his legs barely reaching the pedals. He gripped his sticks so tightly his hands trembled. For a moment, the theater was silent, the spotlight bathing him in gold. Rosa and Carlos held their breath from the side of the stage. To everyone else, he looked like a child about to play a toy instrument. But inside Miguel's little chest, his heart beat with rhythm and fire. He knew this was not just another performance. This was his chance to prove that even the smallest drummer could create a sound powerful enough to shake the world. The theater went silent as Miguel lifted his drumsticks, his small hands steady despite the weight of the moment. Then, with a sharp crack of the snare, the rhythm exploded across the stage. At first, the audience gasped, stunned that such power could come from someone so young. His tiny arms moved like lightning, every beat precise, every roll smooth, his feet pounding the pedals with flawless timing. The sound grew louder, faster, layered with complex rhythms that seasoned drummers would struggle to play. The crowd began to rise, clapping and cheering with each powerful strike. Rosa covered her mouth, tears streaming, while Carlos stood frozen, his chest swelling with pride. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his eyes widening as disbelief turned into astonishment. Heidi Klum shook her head with a smile, whispering, "Unbelievable." Sofia Vergara's jaw dropped, and Howie Mandel threw his hands in the air, shouting, "This kid is a prodigy." Miguel's face lit up with pure joy, his body lost in the music, as though the drums were an extension of his soul. The audience was on its feet now, roaring with cheers, the sound echoing through the theater like thunder. When he ended with a dramatic final crash, the stage shook with applause. Simon stood, pressing his hand firmly on the golden buzzer. In an instant, golden confetti rained from above, showering the little boy in a storm of gold. Rosa and Carlos ran onto the stage, wrapping Miguel in their arms as tears of joy poured freely. Simon, still shaking his head, said with a smile, "I have never seen anything like this in my life." The judges clapped, the audience chanted his name, and in that magical moment, Miguel Santos became not just a 5-year-old drummer, but a legend in the making. Back in the Philippines, the news of Miguel's golden buzzer spread faster than wildfire. Television stations replayed his audition, and social media overflowed with clips of the tiny drummer who had stunned Simon Cowell. In Quezon City, musicians gathered in cafes and music halls, talking excitedly about the boy who had put Filipino talent on the global stage. Miguel and his family returned home to Manila as heroes. Neighbors lined the streets, clapping and cheering as he walked past, still holding the same drumsticks that had made history. His shy smile grew wider with every cheer, and his parents, overwhelmed with gratitude, bowed their heads humbly. Soon after, the family traveled to Baguio City, where Rosa's relatives lived. The community organized a parade in his honor. Colorful banners stretched across the streets, children wore shirts with Miguel's face printed on them, and a local marching band welcomed him with music. Sitting on his father's shoulders, Miguel waved to the crowd, showered with flowers and cheers. "Drum for us, Miguel," someone shouted, and without hesitation, he tapped out a rhythm on a nearby bucket, sending the crowd into thunderous applause. His talent was no longer just his family's pride, it had become a symbol of hope for an entire nation. Reporters asked what he wanted to do next, and in his soft, childlike voice, he said, "I want to keep playing, and make people happy." His innocence touched everyone's hearts. That night, as the family gathered in their small home, Rosa whispered to Miguel, "Your rhythm is now the heartbeat of our people." The little boy looked at his drumsticks and smiled, knowing his journey was only beginning, and that the world was waiting to hear more.